Hey everyone. I know this is awfully late for me to be coming on, and it's not expected, so I don't. It's fine. If you're watching this, whenever, it's perfectly cool. Don't even worry about it. Um, I wanted to refine a thought, and I would just wait until next Sunday or even just until Thursday, but I wanted to comment on this very quickly. Um, because I do think whenever I make a mistake or an error, I want to make certain I catch it very, very soon. Again, I am not imperfect. Or no, I am imperfect. There we are. I'm imperfect. I'm capable of making mistakes, and I make them all the time. So I want to make certain that when I do, I want to make certain y'all the first people I tell. I am going to perhaps tomorrow or Tuesday take down Sunday's video. I'm going to edit it a hair. I'm going to attach this message at the end. Well, Susan, it's an important thing I want to say. Um, and then I'll put it back up because I do want it to be up because a lot was said that was very important. And I think I got far more right than I got wrong. And in fact, I would say I was probably about 99% right there, but I did overstep on one thing. And I want to talk about that. And it's really, really important because I think I was off by like 1 or 2 degrees. And that got me to a place that I don't think was right. So I want to bring everything back into alignment because 1 or 2 degrees is the difference between ice and water. It's the difference between hitting a bullseye and missing the target entirely if you're far enough away. So I want to make certain that I'm saying this correctly. And I want to make certain that I've refined the thought a little bit because I think I took one step over and I want to explain why and put us back into alignment. And then, like I said, I'll be able to put this message in with the other. So here's the correction I want to make, or the refinement of the thought I want to make. During the prayer and during the rejection of the sort of entanglement of patriotism, of love of country with the church and with God, which I have done, which we've all done. That's I think that's one of the core elements of the corruption of the church system, which is why we have to walk away from it, and we do. As I mentioned, we need to have an appropriate love for country, which means not. And again, I equate it to the garden, right? You can love a garden in a particular way, but there's a point where you love it too much, and everyone's like, "Look, that's unhealthy." As Christians, we are representatives and ambassadors of a higher and more important kingdom. We're here to get people out of it. So the problem is we often swing one side and say we can't have anything to do with the world whatsoever, and we become monks, right? Then the other side is we're like, well, no, we don't want to do that. And so we go to the other side where we're so enmeshed that we're where we are now, where we've become too enmeshed. We got to find the appropriate response, which is, hold on, let's put you where you need to be, right? So much of life is, and so many mistakes are people just we have things inverted, right? It's like, no, this is something good. God gave us this for a reason, but then we take it and we make it something ugly. Because we flip the importance of it. So I want to say something and I want to refine it very, very closely because I think the spirit was there, but I took one more step forward because it wasn't anything I'd really thought of, and I didn't really have it out. I should have held my tongue on that and talked about it next Sunday, but I didn't. So here we are. And like I said, when I make a mistake, I want to be the first one to say it. And I want y'all to be the first ones to hear it. So I talked about not singing the national anthem, not saying the Pledge of Allegiance, because those are acts and forms of worship. They are and any sociologist will tell you this. Please understand. Any sociologist will tell you, yes, that is absolutely what they are. They are a secular religious practice because their purpose is to pull everyone together, right? That is the entire idea. And so I rejected that idea because we as Christians, our allegiance is to God and to God alone. But my wife, who was the first one to call me out on this, and we went back and forth, and I took her away from her position, but she made me see some things and brought some things back to mind. We're like, oh, okay, hold on. And then it put everything back into alignment for me, right? Again, 1 degree off is the only difference between water and ice. That's this. We absolutely can, as Christians, say the Pledge of Allegiance. We can sing the Star Spangled Banner, but we have to change the spirit. We have to recognize where we've enmeshed things so much that we've polluted what we've become, that we've become corrupted, right? That's our problem. we've enmeshed things. What we have to do is de-enmesh them, put God where he needs to be in our lives, and then put these other things where they need to be. I talked about Daniel. Well, she pointed out Daniel he had to pledge a loyalty to the king. He would say things like, "Oh king, may you live forever," right? So it's like, well, hold on. He could say that, and he wasn't in error. Paul, again, I've never said anything about renouncing our citizenship at all, so no one should ever take that from that. I said we need to love and protect this country. We should fight for it, but as Christians, which is different. But we can, right? And so and Brunson, that's exactly where I'm going, right? I know, Titan, you understood our intentions, but I want to clarify, because this is important. Brunson, this is exactly where I'm going, and thank you. We have to render to Caesar what is Caesar and God what is God's. It's very important. The first century Christians were asked to take the incense and throw incense on the altar to say that they worshipped Caesar. And that was a big deal. A lot of Christians said, no, we're not doing that. And they died for it. Our founders were actually very clever. Now, as I pointed out, I do believe that the anthem and the Pledge of Allegiance, those all came in, again, as I showed, they came in the 20th century. There's some sketchy stuff behind them, but the language still fell in line with what our founders had. Our founders understood this. They knew how easily someone can be manipulated through patriotism. They understood it, and they fought against it. This is why they didn't give us a national anthem to start off with. That's why they didn't give us a Pledge of Allegiance. They're like, whoa, hold up. So we've adopted it now as a nation, but there was still enough godliness. There was still enough people who were under the spirit of the Lord to actually sort of frame it appropriately. So I think we can recite these things, but we do need to be very careful when we say it and understand it for what it is. When we're pledging our allegiance, we're pledging our political allegiance. I think that's different. Our allegiance is to God. It's like God has ourselves. We're representatives, but we, as representatives of God on earth, we understand there's a difference between, say, an ambassador from China or an ambassador from Japan or Russia or whatever. There's a difference there. We're not the same thing per se. So we do have a political allegiance that we can share. And I think the fact that and I will say this very specifically, because it still includes under God, that's the thing that makes it okay for me. The fact that we saw them eliminate under God, that bothers me, and that's a no-fly zone for me. If someone removes under God from the Pledge of Allegiance, I'm out. I ain't doing it, because it makes it conditional. It makes us one nation under God. That's a condition. Our pledge is conditional to it being under God. Now, have I stated that it's like, how can we be under God if there is other spirits? I'm about to show you there is another spirit. In fact, I think there's two, right? But we are choosing to be under God. That's our statement. Like, we as a nation, we've made this choice. So there may be another spirit over, sort of, again, in the hierarchical sense, but we say, yeah, you may exist, but God is that's who we're under, right? Because let's be honest, as we see, all authorities from God, all of it. And God put those authorities in place, and they need to be respected. Again, I've never said to disrespect anything. I just want us to not worship something. Same thing with the national anthem, right? There's a difference between where we make it about worshiping the flag and make it honoring those who have sacrificed and gone before us. This nation was made by people who made sacrifices. That's something we can honor. Look at what happened with David, right? When he returned, people were celebrating his return, and they cheered him on. We can honor those who have sacrificed for our nation, as we should. We should honor them. We should praise them for their sacrifices, and we should celebrate the fact that this nation exists. We can do those things. That's what if that is how you sing the Star Spangled Banner, then we're groovy. If you are giving somebody the political, earthly, material allegiance to defend the Constitution, that's what our Proclamation of Independence, Declaration of Independence. I'm sorry, that's the appropriate name. I'm sorry. I've got a few other thoughts in my head. Then groovy, right? Yeah, we do have a political, just like Daniel did. Daniel said, look, okay, fine, I'm the nation here. We're cool. All good. We can do those things. So I'm not saying, so I do have, so this is my thing. I said I won't, I've rethought it. No, that was too far. What I will no longer do is I will no longer accept the mentality that I think I and I think many of us previously had, right? We didn't recognize what we were doing with some of those. We need to recognize them for what they are. We are stating our political allegiance to a nation that has an ideal. Absolutely. We are honoring and celebrating those people from our nation who made this nation possible when we sing. Absolutely. We're never worshiping and we're never pledging the allegiance that is owed only to God. I think we can make those distinctions, and we're cool and we're groovy. The reason I wanted to say this so quickly after today's broadcast was it occurred to me the flaw in that allowed sin to enter into our world in the Garden of Eden was they took a step too far. God only said, "Don't eat of the tree, or don't eat the fruit of the tree of good and evil, knowledge of good and evil." And he never said, "Don't touch it." Eve said, "Don't touch it." They created something new, and in that something new, it invalidated and made Eve question the rules to begin with. Here's the other thing, and this was actually the most telling thing for me, and honestly, the thing that really won me over to realize what was happening, and what gave me the revelation there may be two different spirits on that level, right? The national spirit level, the Deuteronomy 32 level. There may be two spirits over us. I think we picked both of them. Give me a second to explain. My wife very wisely pointed out that everyone who is supporting our nation, who the people who support the nation, who want the nation to do well, who aren't trying to destroy it, they stand for they stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. You know, they honor those things. They are godly people, and the people who are trying to destroy everything, they're the ones who are trying to tear that stuff down. And I point out, but I'm like, but hold on, right? In fact, yes, Lethia, we're going to talk about that here in just a second. And tighten up, we're going to talk about that in a second. You see, this is what I love about y'all. Y'all are right here with me on this. You're seeing it. I'm like, but hold on, communists, leftists, these people love allegiances, right? They love these pledges. They want to make certain they know who you are, and they got you, right? They're all about that. And then I realized, well, hold on, but it's because they removed the words under God. I'm like, well, hold on, that's the difference here. There's the difference. They're happy to say the pledge. They don't want you. They just don't want under God there. Why? Because now you're pledging allegiance to the state. Once you remove God from being overhead, well, now what happened? It's a change. Remember, I said the pledge is conditional, that we're under God. We're saying our political allegiance will lie here because you've put yourself under God's authority. Groovy. That's where you were supposed to be. That's what we're fighting for. They want to remove that. Okay, that was very telling. So it tells me that was sort of my first hint that maybe there's something here. And then it occurred to me, and I said it in my thing, in the broadcast earlier. We only bow to something that we are subjecting ourselves to. By kneeling, we say we are inferior. We are in subjection to you. We stand for something. Again, why do we stand for this, for the national anthem? Because we're standing for the ideal. Again, once you remove that worshipful thought, get that out of your head. Reject that. Fall out of agreement with that. And what are you left with? Celebrating those who have paid the sacrifice so that we can be here, so we can do things, right? We can honor those sacrifices. We have to honor those sacrifices. God wants us to honor those sacrifices, and He wants us to honor the authority that He put above us. Wonderful. Standing for an ideal, that's what we're supposed to do. God's asked us to do those things. I'm all for it. Wonderful. We've got it in its appropriate box, right? That's all we have to do. Put it where it needs to be. That's all. So why is the kneeling such a problem? Because this is the thing that really resonated with me, and I was like, oh, that's it. Because there's a difference from standing for an idea to kneeling to the spirit above it. Remember, our Pledge of Allegiance is conditional. It's under God. And we've already said there is a Deuteronomy 32 spirit, and possibly 2, maybe even more, that is over the United States as the authorities would have it, right? That's how this world was structured until Jesus returns and all the nations are put under his rulership. Groovy. So what are they kneeling to? That means they're kneeling to the spirit. And I think it's one of the other, I think it's one of two. Exactly, Lethia. We only bow our knees to God because that's it, right? So what do we do? How do we sort all this through? We put things in their appropriate boxes. I don't want this to go too long because, we all got lives and I want you to get back to your day. We put things in appropriate boxes. We've disentangled. We've fallen out of agreement. We don't want this enmeshment of the. So let's go back to what you're talking about, Thomas Jefferson. Right. The separation of church and state was that the state was supposed to be separate from the church. It wasn't that the church wasn't supposed to have insight. Like I said, my call at the end of the broadcast was we need to be prophets as Christians. Our role is to be prophets to this secular world and say, hold up, this is what's right, this is what's wrong. The church was supposed to have insight and influence into the government, but the government was never supposed to have influence the other way. That's what the separation was. That's where we failed, because we took what was right, church having influence in the government, and reversed it and gave the government influence in the church. And that's where we've been. That's why we have, and my wife's like, I don't think it happens as often as you think. If it happens once, it's too much. But the simple fact is, it happens way too often. That's why you have churches who are leading in the Pledge of Allegiance. That's why they have their flags on the stand. No. The church has to be separate. The church is God's. Period. End of story. We have to realize that we are separate, and we are providing influence. We're providing advice. Right. Precisely. The church. We have to be separate. We have to be Nathan. We have to be Samuel. We can't be David. We have to have these things. And David may even be a good example where you could have someone who's of the church in, because remember, he was a prophet. He's made some mistakes because power corrupts. That's the other thing we have to remember. But let's go back to the spirit. Who are they kneeling to? Because think about that, right? If you're kneeling, if you're bowing, you are putting yourself in subjection. So if they're kneeling to the national anthem and to the flag, then who's the God of the flag? That's a problem. We can render unto Caesar. We can render the things that we should owe. This nation has blessed us with material wealth and with freedom. And even if you're poor, please understand, you are wealthier than the vast majority of humans who've ever lived on the planet or do live on this planet. You're watching this broadcast, you are far wealthier than most humans who have ever existed. You are living a better life than the King of England was 100 years ago. That's just the truth. Like we are fabulously wealthy. We don't even appreciate how wealthy we are because of how wealthy we are. We owe this. We have an allegiance. God called us to be here, right? We are physical creatures. Our authority is on earth. We are supposed to do these things. We are supposed to do what is right, right? So what are we doing here? We need to make certain. So yes, can we? Yeah, we can participate. We should not cause offense. We can do it, but we have to do it correctly. Let's just put everything in its appropriate box is all I'm saying. Recognize it for what it is. Come out of this overly enmeshed system. Reject these spirits that are trying to put you under subjection that is not of God, and then live up to our call to be the kingdom of God in this world. That's what I'm calling us to. I mentioned that there may be two spirits. I think there are. They may be one and the same. I don't know. I have no special word. That's not how I roll. I work from what everyone has. I work from the Bible, right? I work from the texts. So, right, laws, exactly. So, who are these spirits? There is a theme that shows up often in our artwork, in our language, particularly when you get into some of these things of government, which is the goddess Libertas, the goddess of liberty. It's a Roman goddess. The Statue of Liberty is many ways based on this. There was an Egyptian female who was modeled for it. Blah 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 blah. But that's who it came from. She's also personified as Columbia in a lot of our very old artwork. Columbia being the personification of the United States, again, as this goddess of liberty, goddess of freedom figure. I think that may be one of the spirits that we're under, right? Maybe, and that one maybe that one's even aligned with God. But there is a strong man that is not of God. Now, I'm not saying that this Libertas or this Columbia is aligned with God. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that's one of the options. But with all the baby killing, and let's face it, we did some stuff, right? Like as I've said before, the devil comes to kill, steal, and destroy, right? Every time our government has acted like every other government, let's be honest, right? That's the thing it's like, hey, we're not to, the United States is amazing and is wonderful when it's very different from the rest of the world. The sins that we've committed are the sins of every other nation, right? So we're not unique in that. But then I ask you, if in those times we were acting like every other nation, that means the spirit over our nation was like the spirit over every other nation. We had turned from God, as I pointed out many times. The things like the slave Bible, like we, when the church and the nation became intertwined, the church lost out. It lost its spine. It was not doing what it was supposed to do. That's been our mistake. That was our corruption, which means we allowed something over our nation. I think that's what the conflict is right now. This is the key. So again, the reason I started this, I've already explained. Yes, you can say that, I will go back to it, which is good because I do like them. I love these things, but I need to love them appropriately, right? Whoa, moths. They're trying to tell me something. We just need to love these things appropriately. But I can't help but wonder if the reason our nation behaves, right, as every other nation is because there's another spirit there. And I think this conflict that we're seeing right now, 2020, all of it, God through, and I'm going to talk about this more on Sunday, so just roll with me. If I'm telling you not to worship anything, I'm certainly, you can assume I'm not telling you to worship Trump. I'm certainly not saying to look to him as leader. We need to be looking to Christ as our leadership. I do think God put Trump in there, and I'm going to make that argument. I think I think he's the perfect person for this time, and a lot of reasons. We'll talk about that on Sunday. I don't want to get too far off the field, but I think God through Trump for this time, as I said, there was the Trump prophecy from like 1983 that said he's going to lead people back to God. I think his chaos, he is the hammer, he is the grenade that has been thrown into the system that's got everything screwed up and everyone's freaking out. And we can see again, it was the thing that has awakened the church, right? God choosing Trump for this time was, I think, to wake up the church and to allow us to see where we are. This conflict that we have seen erupt, I think, is between the people who are under this other spirit, this divisional spirit. Maybe it's Baal, maybe it's Leviathan. I think Leviathan is absolutely active in the manipulation of speech, but he may not be the spirit over us. He just may be active. And you know what? Maybe it is liberty. What if Libertas, this goddess, this Columbia goddess, what if she's not aligned? And what's happening is it's the liberty leads to chaos if there isn't the appropriate discipline, if you're not with God. Remember, our forefathers, all of them said that this nation, this idea of representative democracy was required moral people. They flat out said it's not going to work unless we're Christians, basically. So, could it be liberty and just saying, "Hey, I want these people for myself"? Perhaps she became corrupted. Maybe whatever. I don't know. There may be 2, 3, 4 spirits, but the point is, we are seeing a division. There are those who are siding with God, who want true liberty, true freedom, right? They want law. which is the order. Again, God wants law and order. That's one of those things that people forget. Law and order is godly because that allows us to prosper, allows people to live peaceable lives. What does Paul himself say? We are to live peaceable and orderly lives. That's what we're supposed to look for. We can't have peaceable and orderly lives if there's no law. Law is designed, the government's designed to bring the sword so that we can all live peacefully and safely. And we haven't had that for a very long time. Again, we'll talk about that more next week. But this chaos that's erupted, that's not orderly. That's not of God. God doesn't bring disorder. The serpent does. Satan does. Kill, steal, destroy. That's all we're seeing. That is Satan. So I'm gonna end with this. Like I said, eventually I'll put these two videos together just so we're all on the same boat. I went too far because in my zeal, I didn't stop to think, and I took it too far. I do believe Holy Spirit revealed to me the connection between between the secular worship and these things. So that was right, but I took it too far. I said, hold on. Instead of not participating at all, what we need to be doing is just putting them in their appropriate place, as we should for all things, right? Let's put the appropriate things in their appropriate places. That's all we got to do. The Pharisees, they're the ones who built walls and it's like, don't do this and don't do this and don't do this, so you don't violate this. I'm not a Pharisee. I want us to live as Christ has called us, which means do what you got to do. This is clarity. And that's all I've ever wanted. Like I said, when I make a mistake, I'm the first one to call it out. So I'm going to end on that. Give y'all a couple seconds. Any questions that I didn't maybe address for clarity on this? Because again, I want to make certain we're all clear. When I'm talking about rejecting and falling out of agreement, it is the worshipful spirit that has corrupted, that when we do these things, that has corrupted the church. We need to take them and realize what we're actually doing. This is about political, again, the elite, it's political allegiance, which is appropriate. We are subjecting ourselves to the authority as is a righteous thing to do, as God called us, right? When we are singing, we are honoring those who have fallen to provide us our liberty, and we are celebrating the nation that is there to protect it. We can do those things. We just can't make them worshipful, which is the flaw. We had things reversed. Let's just put them back where they are, right? Let's honor those things. Let us remind ourselves that we are of the kingdom of God first and foremost and always. And let us be the light that we're supposed to be. Let us be the city on the hill. Let us be the salt, so we can bring this nation back to where it should be. We should fight for this country because, as I said, as I ended the broadcast, we need to fight for this country because we have a responsibility to it, a God-given responsibility to it. This is ordained. God has ordained us to do that since the dawn of time. We just need to put it in its appropriate place. When our love becomes incorrect, when we love something inappropriately, that's when we fall. That's when we falter. We love as we should, right? All right. If we're all groovy, and it looks like we are, cool. Like I said, on probably Tuesday, I'll pull both these videos down, smash them together, and so we'll all be okay. And for that, I think we're good. Saturday, remember? The politics now would make anyone feel. Yeah. Well, you know what, Susan? That's exactly right. And that's what we're trying to deal with, right? We need to come out of those things because the way we've been doing these things is wrong. And that's why we got here. So let's figure that out. So remember, Thursday, we're going to keep doing what we're doing. Saturday, we're going to have our hangout, right? We're going to talk questions, everything. So groovy, y'all be good. And again, if you need anything, let me know. And we'll see y'all later. And for those of you who watch Texas Front Porch, we'll see you on Monday.